Hello everyone and welcome to Shell Point Today for Thursday, October 27th. I'm Dan Philgreen. Coming up on today's show, Teri Kollath will feature an Academy instructor for us to learn more about beyond the classroom. And she'll also visit with Bruce Findley to hear the latest about the iPhone, Apple TV, iPad technologies, and upcoming classes. But first, we want to remind you about the Walk to End Alzheimer's event coming this Saturday. Walk with the Shell Point Cares team of residents and employees for a great cause. The walk begins at Centennial Park in downtown Fort Myers. It's a 2.5-mile walk to support the Alzheimer's Association. The Shell Point Community Thrift Store provides donations and registration for this event. Court pickups begin on the island at 7 a.m. Make sure you call the service desk for more info and to sign up. Looking ahead to Monday, you'll want to see Gary Vidito's performance of World War II, A Survivor's Story. The show will bring to life the causes, incidents, and results surrounding World War II through stories and song. Gary will portray his father, who was aboard the USS Susan B. Anthony off the coast of North Africa, Sicily, and Normandy. During the D-Day invasion, the ship struck 2 mines and went down. Don't miss this harrowing story of courage, survival, and determination of the greatest generation to defend and preserve the freedoms we enjoy today. The performance begins at 1 p.m. in the Grand Cypress Room at the Woodlands on Monday. And now it's time to go beyond the classroom to get a closer look at one of your resident Academy instructors. This man is no stranger to most students of photography and art here at Shell Point. I'm talking about Herb Sklar. Teri Kollath had the opportunity to sit with Herb recently to find out about how he got into art and teaching and into the digital world as of late.
I'm Teri Kollath, manager of the Academy of Lifelong Learning. I'm here today with Herb Sklar of Eagles Preserve. We're talking about Herb Sklar of Eagles Preserve. Herb, it's a pleasure knowing you and having spent these years presenting the classes that you dream up in the arts for us at Shell Point. And I think what we'd like to know in this interview is a little bit about Herb Sklar personally. Where did you come from? Where did you grow up?
It's an open question. Well, I came from New York, and Sheila and I came down here after she left to practice, and I sold my agency, and we retired in Florida. And Sheila's friend invited her to Shell Point for a fashion show. And when she came back, she was so impressed with Shell Point and the people. She said, well, you got to come here. I said, oh, I'm not ready to die yet. I don't want to go to Shell Point. And we ended up here, and boy, I tell you, it was the greatest decision we ever made.
That's fabulous. We can all enjoy some of the things you've been a part of starting here. Teaching so much art, getting the photography studio in place, and leading the photography club. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, when I was very young, I used to draw comic books and cartoons, and it was suggested that maybe I should go to art school. And I wanted to, but I had a mother who was a little overprotective, and the school I wanted to go to was Art and Design in Manhattan, and she was very concerned that I'd have to take the subway. But I won, and I did go, and it was the greatest experience of my life. And from there I went on to Pratt in Brooklyn, and I started working for the small agencies and the big agencies. At probably the greatest time you could be in advertising. Creativity was king, and I landed up in probably the best agency ever, which gave birth to a lot of creative agencies. And I learned so much there. It's been so many good people. And then I started my own agency because I looked around one day and I said, gee, there isn't an art director here over 35. So it was the young people's business. So I started my own agency, but I didn't want to do it in Manhattan. I did it in Westchester where we lived so I'd have a better quality of life, and I bought a barn. And I converted the barn, and I got a partner, and we worked out of the barn for 30 some odd years, going into Manhattan, going into Connecticut. It was a great set of circumstances. We bought this little barn right across from a shopping center, and we added to it, but all of a sudden General Foods moved in next door. They changed the town from Portchester to Rye Brook. And they built 287, which was called the Platinum Highway, and went right through. And all of a sudden, we were in a high-rent district.
With your barn.
With our barn, yeah, so it was great.
So a little bit about creativity. I mean, we all start out as very creative little children, and something happens. Tell us how you view creativity, how creativity has grown in your life, Herb.
Well, I was an art director, and that's what I did. I was a designer and art director, and I never really got the chance to do painting and pastels and all the other wonderful stuff. But I also got involved with photography because I would hire photographers, and I got to hire some of the best photographers in the world. It was incredible. Richard Avedon, whenever I had the budget, I would use him. And so that was my restriction. And when I retired, I said, wait a minute, I never got to do this. So every summer I promised myself that I would learn something new. And I did. And the funniest thing happened. I would learn something new. I would teach it at the academy. And there was always a student who was better than me. And that was the greatest thrill in the world. Karen Hubbard, I taught a color pencil. She's so much better at pencils. And then I taught a wiring class, three-dimensional, with paper cover. And a student was so much better than me. So it's been great. And my passion has always been photography and always art. And when I retired, I started painting, started more into photography. And I love it because I love that, so it's a joy to teach. And also, it's a way of giving back. I've had such an incredible career. I mean, things have happened to me that are just unbelievable. I got to work with Billy Crystal when he was starting his career and I was starting my career. I went in a helicopter with no windows with a photographer to take pictures for American Airlines over in New York. All kind of great stuff like that.
Now, we have two classes coming up. We'll just talk a little bit about them. You're going to talk about Make Art Better, and you're also going to talk about the iPad and how to do some art on the iPad.
The emphasis is on composition, and I just wanted to do this class years ago, Teri, and I just couldn't figure out how to do it. And then bang, all of a sudden it came to me. I said, man, that's going to work. And so I finally figured out how to do it, and that's why I suggested doing it. And I'm doing it as a half-day seminar because it's kind of intense. So when you come in, I want everybody to leave improved in there. And whether you're a photographer, whether you're an artist, you can always make better composition.
And you have been instrumental in making sure we have people growing in all the fine arts here. Photography, painting, drawing, because you've taught color and you've taught how to draw and you've taught the basics. And now here you are.
Moving up from the basics.
That's wonderful. So in addition to the regular arts, you are also involved now in technology in the arts, the digital world. And we're going to have a class that will help all of us get a little, and all of us in the class get a little bit more background on digital art.
Yeah, that I've seen what the younger illustrators are doing. I said, I have to try that. It's incredible. So I got an iPad, and I started working on it. My first couple of digital paintings were awful. And then they got a little better, and I became comfortable with it. I said, this is just so great. When you draw with or paint with an iPad, it's like having a closet filled with art supplies that you don't pay for. You can do watercolor, you can do pastel, you can do paints, you can do pen and ink. It's all there, and you don't even get dirty. And so everybody's going to come into that class, and when they leave, they're going to be able to draw on their iPad. And if they keep at it, they'll get really good at it. And I'm taking that even further, where I'm now starting to print what I'm doing on metal plates. You know, we'll see how that goes.
Fabulous. Herb, it's always a pleasure to talk with you about your classes, and it's been a real pleasure today to let people at Shell Point get to know you a little bit better. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bruce Findley of Sundial loves all things Apple and recently visited with Teri Kollath to talk about the iPhone, the iPad, and Apple TV tech classes that he teaches here at Shell Point.
Hi, I'm Teri Kollath. I'm here today with Bruce Findley of Sundial, and we are talking about some wonderful classes he's presenting in the Academy of Lifelong Learning this very semester. Thanks for joining me, Bruce.
I'm more than glad.
Well, I very much want to talk about what you're doing this semester and let people know that if it's too late to get into something now, you have promised to continue into the spring semester, some of these great topics.
This semester, classes are set, but there's plenty of room in the classes. What I was most concerned about in setting classes for this semester were some of the new things that people were going to run into, both before I came back to Shell Point this fall and before we did the January term. So the January term is the main event, and there are a couple classes this time that help you get toward January. There are classes about the Apple Watch, which is now so important to the life of many, 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 perhaps even most Shell Point residents. And it will continue. There are 2 classes this semester, and there will be more in the January term.
Let's talk about the watch for a minute, because talk about getting simpler. You've shown me how that watch can do something that's pretty important to everybody.
The watch is the most personal device that Apple has made, and it's with you when you think about it. You wear a watch a lot, and the Apple Watch recognizes that it's for a wide variety of people, so that it can be so very simple. You can change the face, and you can make it so that it is just one large, simple number. And it's easy to see. It does not have to be complicated, but the function that has changed in the last 4 months is something called SOS emergency. And by pushing the side button, push and hold for a couple minutes, a couple seconds, you get a thing that is very clear, and it says SOS emergency. It will call 911, and it will send text messages or emails to your caregivers if you wish. So that, and this not only works in your apartment with Wi-Fi or cellular. This will work if you're at Publix or you were down at the Florida Rep in the evening and you were in the back parking lot and you happen to fall. Push one button, you get 911, and things like this can make safety things. It's waterproof, so you can wear this in the shower. The courses will help you get these iDevices or these Apple devices into your daily living, and I truly believe, can make a big difference.
That is fabulous. Now we also have, we have new in a lot of your classes. We have the new Apple TV. That's just not an Apple, and it's not a regular TV. What is it?
An Apple TV is a hockey puck that got squished by the Zamboni machine, which is the thing that goes around the hockey rink. So it's flat on the sides, but it has the rounded corners left from the original hockey puck. It's an inch thick, it plugs into the wall, and it plugs into your television. It is connected by Wi-Fi, like your phone is, or your iPad is, or your Mac, or your PC. So it allows you to get to the internet. And Shell Point has recognized that they cannot keep adding and specializing the cable content for all the wide range of interests that Shell Point residents have. So they give 120 plus channels. It's a spectacular, wonderful cable system, but they can't do what you want at 9 o'clock on a Sunday Sunday evening, when it might have been on the previous Wednesday and you missed it because you had another appointment. So the Apple TV lets you watch what you want to watch, when you want to watch, and it delivers it or streams it from the internet to your television, your high-definition television. And it is, as far as I'm concerned, along with some equivalent devices, the future of what television is.
And then the other new, the iPhone is definitely not new, but there is a new iPhone 7.
The iPhone 7 was just introduced in September. Shell Point has, in the past, they have made some investments in some pieces of equipment to be used for instructional purposes. And the iPhone 7 has enough changes to it that you really needed one to demonstrate in class. It's very special.
I hope that you will look through your fall semester and then your spring when you get it in the middle of December. Look at all the technology classes that we have. And the good news is we have people who will help you with your computer on a regular basis in the Woodlands Computer Center. We have people who will help you with your own personal questions for the Apple products on Saturdays. Just find it in your weekly reminder, the walk-in clinic. And we have our instructors who will take you through these new technologies and help you become comfortable with something that will really enrich your life.
And now it's time to cover all of today's happenings, Academy news, menus, and Village Church connections.
Hi everyone, and welcome to today's segment of Happenings of Shell Point TV. I'm Dora Robbins, and I'm here to tell you about all the activities that are going to happen today at Shell Point. We're going to start off at 7:15. It's a health connection, bend, breathe, and balance, and that's at the health club. At 8 o'clock, we have men's golf at the Shell Point Golf Club. We also have at 8 o'clock pickleball, and that's at the game courts on the island. And at 8 o'clock, we also have round robin tennis, and that's at the tennis courts. At 8:30, we have Paddlers Club, and they start off from the kayak storage on the island. At 9:15, we have shuffleboard, and that's at the shuffleboard courts on the island. At 9:15, we have Stocktoberfest, and that's at the social center on the island. At 9:30, we have current events, and that's going to be at the game room at the Woodlands. At 9:30, we have ladies match play, that's at the tennis courts at the Woodlands. At 9:45, we have introduction to beginning line dance, and that's at the health club on the island. We have Lucy Show Bible, that's at 9:45 at the Village Church. And at 10:15, we have basic line dancing, that's at the health club. At 10:30, we have Stocktoberfest, presents the sound of yesteryear, that's at the amphitheater. And at 10:45, Suit the Q is off to Fathoms Through the Locks, and sign up is required. At 12:45, we have Mahjong, and that's at the Library Lounge. And at 1 o'clock, we have a Health Connection, Common Disorder of the Ear, that's at the Oak Room, sign up is required. At 1:15, we have Aviation Club, and that's at the Banyan Banquet Room at the new club. Samba Card Game is at 1:15 in the Resident Activity Center. We have at 1:45 a Health Connection, and that's King's Crown Fun and Fitness. That's at the Community Room at King's Crown. At 2 o'clock, we have Stamp Ministry, and that's in the Stamp Room in the tunnel. At 2:15, we have Grief Share, and that's at the chapel. Cantata Rehearsal, that's at 2:30, that's in the choir room. And at 2:45, we have a Health Connection Ballet Fit, and that's at the Health Club. At 3 o'clock, we have the Springs Bible Study, that's at the Springs Private Dining. And at 3:45, we have another Health Connection, it's Yoga Fit, and that's at the Health Club on the island. At 4 o'clock, our Seamstress weekly service will be here at the Offspring Room. At 4:30, it's Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, that's at the Sable Rooms at the Woodlands. And at 4:30, we have a dinner outing. It's Fresh Catch Bistro, and they leave at 4:30 from the island, 4:40 from the Woodlands, and 4:50 from Eagles Preserve and Estuary. Sign up is required. At 6:30, we have Pinochle, and that's at the Library Lounge. And our last activity for today is at 7 o'clock, and it's Trailblazers Bible Study, and that's at the game room at the Woodlands. Thanks, everybody, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.
Hello, I'm Teri Kollath with your Academy information for Thursday. At 10:15, we have iPhone, iPhotography, the updated Photos app, taking place in the Manatee Room on the island, and sign up is required.
Menus for Thursday. In the Crystal Room, the Crystal Platter is Salisbury steak with mashed potatoes and carrots and roasted beets. For dinner, the special is the Crystal Carving Board for $14.95. The soup of the day is broccoli cheddar. In the Island Cafe, the sandwich special is a patty melt on rye with fries for $7.95. Dinner specials in the Palm Grill are ribeye with maitre d' butter for $19.95 or soft shell crab for $14.95. All menus are available 24 hours a day at www.shellpoint.net.
Welcome to Village Church Connections. I'm David Pavey. We're hearing a lot about refugees and economic migrants these days. My wife Nancy and I spent a decade working amongst them in Great Britain before we moved to Shell Point, so it seems appropriate to devote a few moments on the subject today. One day in England, a refugee friend called me to say that his brother had just arrived at a freeway service station an hour north of us. Could I pick him up? Taking an Albanian with me to translate, I raced to the appointed place where a pathetic sight greeted me. 10 weary, disoriented, unshaven men. Most had no coats. Their shoes were in tatters. None of them spoke a word of English. And they had come from Turkey and the Balkans, having ridden the last stage of the journey hidden in the back of a truck from Brussels. Once the truck had stopped, the driver, who had been unaware of his human cargo, had called the police, who had registered and fingerprinted the weary passengers, had given them letters with orders to report to the immigration authorities in London, and then released them. So now they were illegal aliens, if you like, legal until their request for asylum had been adjudicated, and they were given permission to remain or not. Not would mean that half of them would go underground. A few would be deported. It was agony for me to have to pull 2 out of that pathetic group and leave 8 of them there in the cold and darkness, struggling to contact a relative via phone or to find someone to give them a lift to who knows where. Refugees are pouring into Europe. Technically, a refugee is someone who has been forced to flee his home country because of armed conflict or persecution. Well, Syrians, for example. 5 million refugees have fled from Syria to Turkey, Jordan, and elsewhere. Refugees should receive special consideration by receiving countries if declared to be genuine. An economic migrant, on the other hand, is someone who chooses to resettle in another country in search of a better life. For example, Nigerians who flee poverty and look for work in Europe. They fall under the receiving country's immigration laws. Over 65 million people around the world have been forced from home. That's the population of France. 2/3 of them are internally displaced within their own countries, but over 21 million are genuine refugees, more than the population of Florida, and more than half of these are under the age of 18. Economic migrants are also pouring into Europe. Total sea arrivals to Europe in 2015 was over 1 million, while nearly 4,000 died en route. 75% of them were women and children. There's no sign that this flow of African migrants will ever stop. Now let me introduce you to Samir, a refugee from Afghanistan. After a death-defying escape from the Taliban, Samir, aged 14, managed to cross into Iran, where border guards shot at him. He traversed Iran into Turkey and across Turkey, and there squeezed into a packed refugee boat for Greece. He then hid himself on trains across Europe until he finally staggered a few months ago into what is known as the jungle in Calais, across the English Channel from Britain. 10 months on, however, the final leg of the journey to the UK is proving the hardest of all. Calais is the end of the line for many refugees, and in many respects is a microcosm of the legal and political morass at the center of the world's biggest refugee crisis since the Second World War. Samir wants to reach his brother in London by sneaking aboard a truck headed across or under the English Channel in a nightly death-defying game of chicken with French or British police. More than 10,000 migrants live in the bleak, soggy, windswept area known as the jungle, 1,000 of them being unaccompanied minors like Samir. There are no UN relief organizations there, unlike the camps in Greece and Jordan and elsewhere. Legally, the jungle doesn't even exist. Now, Britain has started building a 13-foot wall in Calais to prevent all illegal access to the trucks and trains that use the 31-mile tunnel to Folkestone, or the ferries. Moreover, the French Interior Minister has declared that France intends to demolish the jungle this year and disperse the refugees to small centers across France, a plan doomed to failure, as several French mayors have already stated they will not willingly accept the refugees, and the migrants will return to Calais anyway, determined to get to the UK. London, meanwhile, is scrambling to grant special permission to allow unaccompanied minors with relatives in Britain to immigrate from the jungle before the French bulldozers do their work. Across Europe, hundreds of thousands of people are trapped in various forms of legal purgatory, waiting for labyrinthine asylum procedures to take their course, or scrambling to find legal loopholes while governments argue over how many of them they will accept as refugees. Samir is now 16. I wonder how his story will unfold. Will he be able to join his brother in London? Some churches and charities across Europe and in North America are doing good work to help refugees to resettle and to introduce them to the gospel. In Calais, an Assemblies of God church has been ministering to the so-called jungle. Their work received national attention recently, however, when much of their building was burned to the ground, apparently by arsonists. In Britain, numerous churches are doing what they can to reach out to migrants. My wife Nancy and I devoted a decade to such work in Luton, near London, and now one of the converts is spearheading a ministry to immigrants in the center of that town, under the auspices of an evangelical church. In Germany, numerous churches are reaching out to refugees. The village church at Shell Point has given generously to support the work of an Arabic-speaking missionary couple who are reaching out to Syrian refugees in Berlin. Others are doing good work in Rome, Athens, Amman, Beirut, Toronto, Vancouver, Minneapolis, and other cities in our own country. National governments determine immigration policy, but Christians need to see the presence of migrants, whether refugees or migrant workers, as an opportunity rather than a threat, an opportunity to show kindness and share the good news of Jesus and his love. Oh yes, Jesus. What would Jesus do relative to migrants? I was a stranger, and you invited me into your home, he said. Hear the words of Moses. The Lord your God shows love to the foreigners living among you, and gives them food and clothing. So you too must show your love to foreigners. How do you think we're doing on that score? And thank you for tuning in once again to Village Church Connections.
And that will wrap things up for this Thursday edition of Shell Point Today for October 27th. Watch again tomorrow when Jerry Nanfelt will give us an update on this year's Employee Christmas Fund Drive. And we'll recap the top stories from all of this week. Until then, this has been Dan Philgreen for all of us at SBTV. Thanks for watching today.